And there's Luke Johnson, another freshman from the Naval Academy. So Ottman's going to be flanked by two midshipman freshmen. And they're going to be tough. And Ottman knows that. So he's got to also just swim in his lane. Don't let whatever they do affect him. He's just got to swim his race. And sometimes if you go outside your planned strategy, it can backfire. The way you've been training all season can really turn into a good race. So there you see the midshipman flanking the cadet. So we had two heats earlier. We had a very fast swim in the first heat of the men. I'll talk about that as the race progresses. So I mentioned that they were earlier heat swum, and you don't really expect a time in the first heat that's going to challenge for the win, but we may very well have that from what happened in the first heat. In lane 2 was Walker Wilson from Lehigh posting a 15:31.83. Very fast. And the second fastest time, which came in heat 2, was a 15:50.99 by Matt Rakovic. So right now we've got Ottman and Waters separating themselves rather quickly. After just 100 yards, they were out in 50 point. That's about what most people would be excited to split at the 100 yards in a 500. So we've mentioned the meet and conference records for the women. We'll mention them for the men. The meet and conference records are both the same. It is a 14:58.72, and that was done in 2009 by Navy's Eric Hunter. Very fast swim. And the pool record is by Arthur Frailer, who competed for the University of Florida. At the time, he was swimming for Germantown Academy, just not too far away in Philadelphia, outside Philadelphia. And he went a 14:47.02 in 2011. So we're coming up to 250 yards, and Ottman's holding on to a lead. He's out splitting. He's been out splitting Waters by about 4/10. That's why he's been pulling away with each successive length. And again, I do not want to sound like a broken record, but it's actually, these two guys are actually swimming pretty straight. Waters is actually hugging just one of the lane lines. He's thinking that maybe there's going to be a little draft that Ottman's going to create, but as you see there are two lane lines that are separating each lane. When you have two lane lines, it's a little harder to catch a draft. It's a little bit harder to do because those lane lines eat those waves that an athlete can quote unquote surf on and hopefully slingshot themselves past the athlete who's ahead, who's actually pulling the other athlete along. And I think Ottman was aware that Waters was trying to draft, so he's been staying on this side. As you see, he's staying on one side of the lane. So he's swimming straight, he's just not swimming down the middle. And he actually comes in a little bit towards the middle of the lane sometimes, but pretty much staying there on the right side. And Waters is thinking, maybe there's a chance I'll get a draft, and he's just hugging that lane line, trying to get anything that he can. But I think sometimes what happens, he ends up hitting his own wave, because his wave is hitting the lane rope, and it kind of has to, sometimes that wave doesn't completely get absorbed by the lane line. It comes and hits him again. This is why he's not being able to hold as strong of splits as Ottman. And usually age has nothing to do with it, but Ottman being a couple years older, having a little more experience with this 1650, I think that is just another reason why. That's just conjecture. Waters did win the 500 freestyle, so he does have some experience and definitely a lot of talent ahead of him in the distance freestyles. Luke Johnson running in third right now after 500. So to be able to hold under 430 at the 500 at this point, very good opening 500. And that was a 550 at the 550, 453.94. So if you multiply that by 3, basically, he's on pace to go about 1440. But that's all conjecture. We'll just have to see how he does here. 1540. 1540. So we'll see how he goes here. I think he's picking up the pace a little bit with each 50. 1520. Redoing my math here. So he's on pace to go 1520. We'll check again at the halfway point how his paces are holding up, but he's been 27.5, 27.6 pretty much the whole way. Ryan Waters kind of picking up a little bit, but he's holding 27.8, so each 50 he's getting 0.2 behind, and with each 100 that means 0.4, and with each 200 that's almost a full second. That's 1,200 yards completed. Sorry, 700 yards completed. 28 links, now 29. And Ottman sometimes has what's called a catch-up stroke. Sometimes he'll slow down his stroke rate and let both of his arms, one arm catch up in front of the other with the other. It's a slower stroke rate. Kind of gives him the opportunity to catch his breath a little bit, and then he'll pick up the pace a little bit. Doesn't do it every time, but you can tell that, see, he just did it right there. And usually, sometimes he'll do it just to kind of set up for a good turn. Ryan Waters still holding on strong. He's not now swimming right down the middle. He's realized he can't get a draft off of Tom Ottman anymore. And we're approaching the halfway point, so we'll check Tom Ottman's split. So 725, so he's on pace to go 1450. So that is right on pace, 1455. He's on pace to break this meet record, which has been around for almost 10 years, 9 years. So we'll keep an eye on that. 1458.72 is the record. Last year, Tom Ottman was 1516 last year. So the fact that he's about to drop probably about 20 seconds, that's really good for Tom. And like I said, he did look promising in that 500, and I was actually not thinking he was going to even break 15 minutes in the mile, but he's determined. And I think maybe he's just been pointing towards this mile. His training has been pointing toward the mile, which is quite different training for 500, believe it or not. You know, as I said, it's a little more than 3 times the length. You do have to train more yards to give yourself the endurance. And with a 500, it's kind of a sprint distance event instead of an actual distance event. We're approaching 1,000 yards here, and Tom Ottman starting to lap people. As I said in the women's race, lapping means that he is now a full 50 ahead of lane 2, Kevin Fleck. So he's at 9:03:01. Nice swim at the 1,000 for Tom Ottman. I got to tell you, if Tom Ottman continues this pace, at the pace that he could go, he could very well get an invitation to the NCAA championships in this meet, in this event. The B cut, which is the provisional qualifying time, it's not automatic time, is 15:30.39. So as you see there, the placards going into the water, signaling 43 links completed. So they put it in the water so that the athletes can see what length they're on. Sometimes the athletes count in their head, but it is required in collegiate swimming to have the counters, whether the athletes need it or not. You have to have the counter. It's not required in USA swimming. Sometimes an athlete will elect not to have it, but the officials will still put the counters there. So we're going to be checking in on Tom Ottman. Ryan Waters still holding on to a good third, but his teammate, Luke Johnson, got him in his sights there. As you see, Ryan Waters in lane 6, Johnson in 4 right at his feet. He's got his eye on him. And Johnson's actually really doing some fast splitting. He's at 27.1. He's actually starting to outsplit Tom Ottman, who is, he's still holding on strong. 28.0. I mean, he's not falling off too much. He's only just a couple of tenths off the pace he was trying to hold. So there are the two Navy guys. You can see Ryan Waters has a higher stroke rate, and Luke Johnson has Luke Johnson, but Luke Johnson in some of these 50s has been out splitting him with that stroke rate. So sometimes a faster stroke rate does not always mean a faster split. So Tom is now into the 28-second range. Consistently now, that's 350s where he's been holding 28s with a 400 left. And he's got to know that the light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And if he holds on, he can get that beat record. That would be a big reward for him. As we said, this beat record's been around for 9 years. That's a long time. Eric Hunter from Navy did it in 2009. And that was one of the years where if you were following swimming in 2009, where athletes could wear swimsuits that came all the way up to their shoulders and all the way down to their feet. They were called bodysuits. And not only did they help the athletes with muscle compression to make them less tired, but they also had polyurethane in them and helped them float a little bit better, which gave them a major advantage. And those suits were banned the following year in 2010. So the two Navy swimmers are now outsplitting Tom Ottman, who is now just fighting for every stroke. And I really hope he can keep this pace, because he deserves to be rewarded with that meet record of 14:58.72. And maybe he's going to get these two Navy freshmen under 15 minutes as well. So we got Army on one side cheering for Tom Ottman, and we got Navy on the other side cheering for Ryan Waters and Luke Johnson. Ryan Waters knows that Luke Johnson is there, and he's trying to hold him off, and I think he's starting to respond to the fact that Luke is getting within striking distance, but in some ways I think there's nothing he could do. Luke is just hammering it home on each successive 50. We've got 200 yards remaining, 8 lengths remaining, and Tom Ottman is just fighting. You can see it. He's just churning and trying to grab as much water as he can. Anything can happen in these final 7 links. And I am not going to say that Tom Ottman has this race in the bag, because the way the Navy guys have been out splitting him, the way they're really picking up the pace, we could see Tom Ottman get run down like he actually did in the 500. He looked like he was going to win, but he just really ran out of room, and Ryan Waters just took that and ran with it. 5 lengths remaining. Again, there is a possibility we could see that meet record fall, but again, it just depends. We'll look at the split here with 100 yards remaining. 14:11, 14:12:01. I don't know, that's a 46. He had to come back in a 46. So Tom Ottman's really fallen off the pace, but he was really on pace to do this, and still a very valiant effort. Look at Luke Johnson. Navy's going crazy. Army's going crazy. They know what's on stake here. It's the Army-Navy rivalry on this final 50. Who's got the bigger guts? And again, this strategy might be paying off for Luke Johnson. The energy he saved on the first half of this race, and he's gone by Tom Ottman, who has absolutely nothing left to respond. And there goes Luke Johnson. Tom Ottman's trying to surge. He's just not going to have it. Luke Johnson, 15:05.59. And that's a 15:07.22 for Tom Ottman, and Ryan Waters gets in there for third, 15:08.93. What a finish by Luke Johnson. Now that is the epitome of the statement, patience is a virtue. He didn't look like he was in it at 500. He didn't look like he was in it at 1,000. I wouldn't have even said he was in it at the 1,200. But slowly but surely, he just kept building. And a 24.95 on that last 50. Man, oh man, what a swim by the freshman from the Naval Academy, Luke Johnson. That's how you swim a 1650. You just go by the rabbit and beat him home. 15:05, a great swim. And there's Tom Ottman. He did everything he could. He swam the race he wanted to swim. And we got our final swimmer coming into the wall. So all 10 athletes are done. Congratulations. By the way, that 15:31.83 by Walker Wilson in the first heat, swum earlier this afternoon, good enough for 5th place. So congratulations to Walker. There is your champion. The way he swam that final 25, I think he could have kept going. Maybe another 100. Fantastic swimming. That's kind of what you like to see, and you can tell these guys put everything they had into that race. Everything they had. Because it's not easy for them to be able to get out of the pool. So let's look at that point where Luke Johnson just slingshotted himself right by Tom Ottman. It was just an amazing thing to see. So at the 1,600-yard mark, Luke Johnson a little further off the wall than Tom Ottman, means he has more oxygen reserves, and he just went right by Tom Ottman. And then the finish, look at that kick, head down, and just right through the wall. And you can see Navy going crazy on the side of the pool there. So yeah, he was tired. I said he could probably swim another 100. He probably wouldn't have been able to do it.